What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week's edition of the Two Buck Sports Podcast. We're coming to you on our regularly scheduled night. One of us is not at an epic concert this week. I am your co-host, Rusty Buckets, checking in tonight with my infamous esteemed colleague, Mr. Drew Gann. How are you, sir?
Man, I am doing well. I have been battling a cold, and I feel like I'm coming out on the other side of it. So if I sound a little nasally, or if I forget to mute my mic when I sneeze, just please forgive me. I know you guys think this is a professional work of art, and you are correct, except for maybe tonight. So, yeah, everything's good on my end. I'm not going to lie, Rusty. I don't really have much FOMO anymore.
Mm-hmm.
As I've gotten older, I've kind of just enjoyed, you know, time at the house with the family and whatnot, and seeing things that other people do don't really make me super jealous anymore. But I was very jealous when you started sending me pictures of sending me videos of you watching Need to Breathe in a small venue in South Carolina last Wednesday night. It was I told you in the text message, I can't watch these. It was the perfect atmosphere. And
Yeah.
if it was like any night other than Wednesday that I could justify like a long weekend or something, like I'd have been right there with you. I It's just, how do you make a Wednesday work
Yeah.
when driving 10 hours?
Yeah. It was absolutely the perfect venue for Need to Breathe. We're both big fans of theirs, and hopefully our listeners are. If not, check them out. They're incredible. I'll link them in on our social media so y'all can hear them. They're such a good rock band with a good sound and soul, and the House of Blues was a perfect venue for them. We kind of positioned over on the stage left side, kind of pretty close, and just was in a prime spot, man. Position A, right near the bar, right near the stage. There was a big group of us there. It was awesome time. They played all their hits. They played a couple of new songs off their new album, and if it's anything like those two songs, man, it's going to be an awesome album. They don't miss. They all are. The coolest things. They played all the favorites. Anytime they play "Washed by the Water," that's my
Oh,
song
of
of
course.
theirs. I
Yeah.
love that song. I lose my mind. And of course, they played it. They played when he played Sunshine. Bear came out into the audience and was walking around, shaking hands. I think I sent you that video. He got close, but not right to us. But the coolest thing they did, excuse me, is in their encore, they came out and they said, "All right, we're going to try something we haven't done before with this song." And they unplugged all their guitars and instruments and put their mics back and said, "We need y'all to be quiet, but we're going to sing Carolina acoustic with no
Oh,
help."
yeah.
I got chills thinking about it, man.
Yeah.
It was so good. They crushed it. And at House of Blues, the concerts have to be over like around 10. And this is already 10:05, 10:08. Well, they finish up Carolina and they're getting ready to go. And everybody starts yelling, "Something beautiful, something
Oh,
beautiful."
they knew. They
And
knew that was.
so Bear was like, "Ugh." And he's like, "All right, hang on, let me get the chorus." And so he's
Oh,
like, "All right."
please.
He
Don't
had to
tell me he doesn't know that
he
song.
had to think about it apparently. And so he got the chorus down and then they sang just the chorus and just absolutely rocked it, man. It was such a good performance. They're so good to see live, and that was the perfect. The only thing would have been better would have been an outdoor small venue like that,
Right.
but it was a great venue for them because they absolutely rocked for an hour and a half. It's great.
Right. I can't remember if it was right before. I guess it was right before Haley and I got married. We got married December of 21.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry, December of
20.
20. Yeah. Uh,
I know your wedding date better than
okay.
you.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Maybe it was after we got married. Either way, it's not important to the story. The story goes, we went and saw him in Jackson. Haley bought some tickets, and I've of course always been a huge fan of Need to Breathe. They're my favorite band, and this was their first full sold out concert outdoors since COVID.
Mm.
So it was in Jackson, Mississippi at the Brandon Amphitheater, and you could tell the energy on the stage, that it was just such a breath of fresh air. And it was just like they didn't want to get off the stage. So they had done their whole set. And then Barry just gets on the microphone and was just like, we're not done yet. We're having a blast. We've missed this so much. we're gonna do an acoustic set for you, and just went full acoustic. Now it was not an intimate environment,
Right.
but it was incredible,
Yeah.
incredible.
I mean, they played because he comes on, he kind of teased it up, and he said, "We've got a new album coming. We promise. We don't know when, but it's coming."
Right.
And he said, "So we'll play." And they'd already played one song off of it, "Ever Known," which they just released, which is a great song if you hadn't heard it yet. And he said, "We're going to play another one." He said, "But if it's all right with y'all, we're going to play a bunch of the old stuff tonight." And immediately went into White Fences and Drive All Night and
Such
Banks.
A good album.
I'm just like, ah.
Well, you know, the song Banks, it brings tears to my eyes every time I hear it. Now that I've always told Rusty, I said, I've got a tattoo design. I just need to go and do it and have it, touched up professionally, get an actual artist to do it for me. But the chorus is, "I want to hold you close but never hold you back, like the banks of a river. And if you think you're not good enough, I'm going to break all your mirrors." And that was like the first song that played after we had our daughter. And I was just like, as a father to a daughter now, it just melts me. And so we're going, maybe one day I'll do when I get my tattoo, I'll do the podcast with my shirt off.
Oh, I love
and
it.
then we'll really drive the YouTube views through the roof.
I have to put that thing age restricted, man. We're going to have some folks stumbling out there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm glad you had fun, but I was jealous, and I hate to say it.
Yeah, just know that it was a great time, and can't wait to go back and watch them again. And
I think that makes us even now. Is this your third time seeing them?
Yeah, it was. I thought,
so we're
third
even.
time.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen them 3 times. The only band I've seen more, can you name it?
Surviving Allison?
That doesn't count.
That is Drew's rock band, for those of you listening home that don't know. That was the band that he toured the country as a part of. Let's see.
You'll be like, oh, yeah, of course, when you hear it.
Is it
Zach
a band
Brown
or
band?
Person?
Zach Brown band.
I was between
I've
that. I've
seen Zach Brown 4 times.
Yeah.
And they put on a great show if you ever get to see them.
Oh, they do. They're a fantastic show. But I was looking to Need to Breathe tickets for this fall. They're going back on tour. Never been to Savannah, Georgia, so thinking about maybe making a trip to Savannah, kind of parlaying a Savannah trip and a Need to Breathe show in October. We'll see.
Hey, make that happen because Haley's sister lives about 30 minutes north of Savannah in South Carolina. It could be a boys' night.
Done.
So we'll make that happen.
Done.
Two Bug Sports Podcast sees Need to Breathe in Savannah, Georgia.
On the road. Let's go. I'm here for it.
Awesome.
All right, man. So we've been having fun with this segment. We've been enjoying, or at least I have been, and I know I've gotten some comments and some friends who just enjoying our banter around our trivia questions. So I've got a few tonight that are a little bit more pointed. We've got some college football theme because we got some college football topics I want to cover tonight, and we're inching ever closer to college football season being upon us.
Unofficial start of college football season this week, which I think is bogus. Don't tell me it's the unofficial start when I still have a month and a half to go.
Right. But guys, we got a lot of college football content that we're going to do that's going to be coming up, from team previews and comparing coaches to serials and a lot of different things we've got planned. So just hang in there. I think this is going to be a fun fall heading into college football. But we'll start with kind of a warm-up sports question, maybe not so pointed at college football. But Drew, can you name the top 5 most watched sporting events worldwide? So we're not talking about just in America. The top 5 worldwide sporting events that are most watched.
Okay.
So we're talking like viewership number on TV.
Okay. Is there multiple answers the same? So, for instance, my first guess is the World Cup.
That's number 2.
Okay. Are any of these like number 2 and number 4? Like, because it wouldn't surprise me if there were 3 World Cup matches that were in the top 5.
No. So this is like a broad brushstroke.
Right,
so it's not World Cup match. It's the entirety of the World Cup. The number 2 most watched sporting event in the world.
The Olympics.
Which one?
Oh, well, which one was in 23?
Was that we just had the winter. Yeah.
Was it the Winter Olympics?
So that's number 5.
Okay. So the Summer Olympics
is number 4.
Okay.
So
and
we
then
got 2 left. These 2
the Super Bowl.
It is not the Super Bowl. We're talking worldwide.
I understand. All right. So worldwide it's
I'll be impressed. Especially one of them. I'll be real impressed.
Cricket.
Oh my gosh, that's number 3. The Cricket World
it's
Cup
huge.
3. It's huge overseas.
It is. It's big in India and even in England.
Yeah.
They've got a huge following, and anytime you can capture the whole country of India, you're going to make a statement. You know.
Right.
Uh,
So what's the number 1 most watched sporting event in the world?
Number 1. So I'm missing number 1.
Missing the most watched out of all sporting events across the globe.
Oh man. I feel like I've hit the high ones, but I'm missing something obvious. All right, I'm gonna start throwing some at the wall and see if it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
A golf major.
No.
Okay, I didn't think that would be the case.
Good guess. It's a little bit more obscure. It's not a prime sport that you would think. But when you hear it, no, it's not Wimbledon. When you hear it, it's gonna make sense.
The Daytona 500.
Let's go. That's the number 1 in America.
Yeah, that's number 1 in Tennessee. By God. Shoot. You may have stumped me on this one because obscure, or not obscure, but
it's one of those things like you would watch it if it was on TV, but it's probably going to be on early in the morning, or you'll catch some of the late stages, or it happens in Europe. There's several stages to it.
The Tour de France?
Tour de France is the number 1 most watched sporting event worldwide.
That invalidates the whole list. I mean, there's no possible way that many people care about the Tour de France.
Let's see. I'm looking up the exact numbers now.
I believe you. So don't take it as a shot at you. But
I hear you. I did the research, man. I know what's up.
I can say honestly, I remember Lance Armstrong's prime. I never watched the Tour de France.
So they get more than 15 million spectators in person and over 1 billion with a B television viewers worldwide every year.
Boy, you think, there's people in the world that think NASCAR is boring.
Yeah, I couldn't watch people riding a bike.
These people don't even, they're not even racing for the finish line. They just time everything, and the winner a lot of times in the middle of the pack. Right. It's just like there's.
It's the most. It just doesn't.
They get a yellow jacket.
Yeah.
It's just garbage all the way around.
Yeah, it's a wild thing, but apparently people. I mean, you think about all the countries that are represented there, all the people that show up. I mean, it's a worldwide sport more so than even golf and probably even things like cricket, even soccer that are played everywhere. But like there are countries, every country just about is represented out there, and it's just a sport everybody can get behind, I guess. But
I've got a cousin. I can't remember the name of the tour that he does, but he's my dad's first cousin, so I think he's actually older than my dad. So he's early 60s probably. But he has always been big into cycling, and last year, he started in Washington State and went all the way to Washington D.C. It's basically like a 2-week long cross country bike ride, and then you keep up with them on the internet. They put chips in them. You see where they're at, and it was really cool. This year he started it and made it about a week, I think, and had a what's it called when your intestines kind of fold?
Oh,
had an obstruction.
Or insusception when they kind of fold over one another,
and had to be hospitalized in one of the Midwestern states somewhere, and had to fly home. Didn't get to finish. But you're talking about an Ironman. That's impressive to be able to do that.
Somebody come by the Pawleys Island Clinic, one of my clinics here on the south end of Myrtle Beach, that was doing something similar. They're going from California and then up to New York or Maine. I forget where they were going, but just how far he'd been on the bike. And my thought was, my man probably is rank. I know he probably stops and
they
showers
sleep
here and
outside.
there. But I bet his clothes could stand up by themselves as much as they've been through.
They when he made it to his finish line last year, they had a cooler full of Michelob Ultra waiting for him. So,
right.
I would have never guessed that the Tour de France was the number 1 watched sporting event.
Over 1 billion viewers worldwide, and I can tell you that I know 2 that miss it every year.
I could tell you right now.
I don't even know when it is.
there's about 7 billion people in the world, so 1 in 7 watch the Tour de France. I couldn't name you one person that I know that watches it.
Yeah, same.
So
we got some
anyway.
closet Tour de France fans out there. So if you were one of those, you're listening, comment on our video on Instagram. Tell us that you watch Tour de France because we need to know. We have questions.
And if you make a good enough case, we may have to bring you on here to justify it because I don't get it.
I don't get it. I want to know what you find in it that you'll watch.
I'll did. Watch. Did you watch Wimbledon this weekend? You know, I told you I love Wimbledon.
Man, Alcaraz is so good. That guy is like the Energizer Bunny. He never runs out of energy.
Well, and see, that was the thing for tennis fans. That was the thing that Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal always were. You know, Roger Federer was the purebred, and I was always a big Rafa fan. And the thing about Rafa was that you would not outwork him.
Yeah.
It was like hitting against a brick wall. You couldn't get anything past him. He was quick. He was quick twitch, fast. He could get to anything. And Djokovic was kind of a mixture of the two. But you just, again, couldn't get anything past him. And to see a 20-year-old upset him in 5 sets, doing kind of what Djokovic does, just kind of made you wonder if Djokovic was losing a step. And Djokovic is 36 years old, so if he's losing a step, that's just, father time working. Nobody's ever beat him before. So
that was his first loss at 8 straight Wimbledon finals attempts. Something like that. I think it was something like that. That was either like 7 or 8 in a row Wimbledon finals he had won. That was his first loss since 2013. Since 2013.
So he had won 4 straight Wimbledon titles over 5 years because COVID wiped out 2020s. He had not lost a match on center court, which is the main tennis stadium at Wimbledon. He had not lost at that court since 2013. And considering most of the time he's either the number 1, 2, or 3 ranked player this whole time, most of his matches have been at center court.
Yeah.
Especially in prime time.
Right.
So, hats off to Djokovic. I hate to see it. I mean, it was Rafa versus Federer, so I always rooted against Federer because as a Rafa fan. And it always seemed like Djokovic got Rafa and Federer fans banded together just to keep that third party down, It's like the whole 2-party system. Like, Republicans and Democrats also want the independent squashed.
Right.
And so I kind of hate to see that his era has continued going because he's now got more majors than anybody in the world, and he's going to run away with it because Rafa and Federer obviously is retired.
Right.
So he will be it. I was talking to my dad who was Sunday we were watching it, and he in the 80s and 90s he was a huge tennis fan. Him and my mom got into tennis after they got married, and I was telling him, I was like, I've grown up in the golden age of tennis, and he scoffed at the idea. He's like, oh no, John McEnroe is the greatest to ever play tennis, and John McEnroe and Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi. I said I did not live in the greatest American age of tennis, but I've lived in the greatest age of tennis because the 3 greatest tennis players all play at the same time starting when I was a kid until now, really.
Yeah.
And so he was just kind of barking at me about it. He's like, no, nobody's better than John McEnroe. So I pulled it up and I said, how many majors do you think John McEnroe has? And he's like, I don't know, 10, 12. I said, all right, well, how many do you think Novak Djokovic has? And he's like, I don't know, 15. I said, he's got 24. John McEnroe has 7. So, yeah, they're not in the same ballpark.
No. It just shows that, that tennis is going to be in good hands going forward with Alcaraz and some of these young guys. He's going to be the future wave of it. But, you made a comment earlier about Father Time catching up with Djokovic at 36. And I saw a funny tweet this week, and it made me laugh. It said, me watching professional athletes retire in their 30s, like they're so young. Why do they have so much life ahead of them? Me getting up off the couch. Okay, I get
it. Yeah. It seems so young. I'm 31, and there are players that have flamed out of every major sport by the time they are my age.
Yeah.
And, Derrick Rose is like your age, if not younger.
We're about the same age because
he was in college in 08. His freshman year was in 08.
That was my junior year. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty close. But, yeah. So, back to the task at hand. We've got questions to ask. We got people that would need to know the answers. So, I got a couple college football trivia rankings. So, we're got I like the lists. I feel like it gives you some options and stuff. So, we're looking at the longest active bowl appearance streaks in college football. We've got 7 that are double digits. Give me the top 7 longest active bowl appearance streaks.
Wisconsin
is number 3 at 21. It's a good guess.
Ohio State
is not one.
Alabama.
Number 4 at 19.
Georgia.
Number 1 at 26.
So Georgia, I'm missing number 2.
Yep.
Let me think.
It barely got extended last year. The number 2 team.
It barely got extended.
Meaning they weren't great last year, but they made a bowl.
Oklahoma,
24.
Oh, is that the one you were thinking about?
Mm-hmm. So they've got 3. You got the top 4.
Mississippi State.
13.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew they would have been on a roll.
Just putting that out there.
They've been to 13 straight belt bowls. Congratulations.
I didn't say quality of bowl. I just said bowl appearances, right? We may be going to the Liberty Bowl. We may be going to the Independence Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl, but dadgummit, we're there.
Yeah, congrats. Let's see.
So you got 2 more.
I'm thinking of SEC schools.
So the last 2 are not SEC schools.
Okay.
Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi State are the only SEC schools. You got 2.
Clemson.
Clemson is 5th at 18, 1 behind Alabama and 1 ahead of this other team. This one's surprising to me a little bit. If you think about it, it's not, but this one was probably the most surprising to me on this list.
Okay. So, is it a powerhouse?
Yes. It's not one of the blue bloods, but it's a consistently good team.
Michigan?
It's not Michigan.
Iowa.
Not Iowa, but you're getting warmer.
I could have swore it. I thought I hit it there.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa was trash last year, weren't they?
Bad.
So if I'm assuming that means I'm in the right area.
Geographical region of the United States.
All right. So around Iowa, you've got Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota,
so you're getting
Illinois.
So we're in the Midwest, and they're actually a bitter rival of one of the teams on this list.
Oh, good grief. I mean, the other teams on this list that's in that area. Oklahoma State.
There it is, with 17 consecutive bowl appearances. Mike Gundy has had them good for a while. They're one of the teams you don't really think about being that good.
It makes sense, though.
But
they're never bad.
Year in, year out consistent. They're never undefeated, but they usually get 7, 8, 9 wins every year. I'm a man. I'm 40. Yeah. Always has them ready.
Yeah. He's a good coach.
He's a good coach. He's a wild guy, but he's a good coach.
Yeah.
I
agree. But all football coaches are wild.
They got to have personalities, right? I mean, we're not all that far removed from CCU's coach saying, I don't need no kitty cats. I need some dogs.
Yeah.
And so you get some personalities, and Mike Gundy is no different. The epic tirade, if you haven't seen him in Living Under a Rock, where he just goes nuclear on this guy, this writer who's going after his quarterback, and I'm a man. I'm 40. Write about me. It was just one of the epic meltdowns at a press conference.
Nobody wants to read about you, Mike. That's why we're writing about the quarterback.
Exactly.
But it probably means a lot to his players that he was ready to fight for them, which is the reason why they do this. It's all about posturing and
100%.
How you can pitch it to recruits.
And that's why baseball managers get kicked out of games. It's all about just that posturing and proving to your team you're fighting for your team and that you're in this for your team.
Right.
All right.
What else you got for me?
The last one, and this is going to be a great segue into one of our topics for tonight. The most vacated wins of all time in college football.
Ole Miss.
is number 2 with 33.
LSU.
Number 1 with 37.
Tennessee.
Is tied for number 9 with 11. There's 13 teams here with the most all, and number 13 has 1. Miami is not on the list.
Oh, okay. Florida
is not on the list.
All right, who's been in Auburn?
I was shocked, but they're not on the top of this list.
They cheat better than everybody.
That's it. They just
Alabama
is number 3 with 21. They're tied with another
Thanks,
team.
Albert Means.
Yeah. And, Fat Phil Fulmer.
Yeah. Shoot, man. Who went?
It's bad while you're thinking.
So Auburn hasn't vacated any wins, but they had a TV ban at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't vacate any wins.
No, not according to my source at College Football Home. They did not. While you're thinking about that anonymous source that got
USC
was Fat Phil Fulmer reporting all the dirty laundry that Alabama did about Albert Means, and USC is number 6 with 14.
Yeah. Reggie Bush.
Mm-hmm. These are fairly surprising. We've got some old traditional powerhouses.
I'm trying to think of NCAA cases that
there's a big one on the East Coast that's the number 5 team with the 16. Big cheating scandal. Pay for tutors for hire, take a test for athletes. It was football, basketball, and one other sport on the East Coast. This has been relatively recent. And some of our listeners in my geographic region might be a fan of this team's basketball or football team.
North Carolina.
University of North Carolina with 16 is the 5th most vacated wins of all time because of that textbook cheating scandal that they had.
Right.
They had a bunch of players that didn't. Julius Peppers did not take any exams when he was at North Carolina. So they vacated 16 wins. So we've got the top 6. You got LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Notre Dame, North Carolina, USC. And then you got one of the 9th place teams in Tennessee.
Yeah. I don't even really know where to guess.
So you were close when you guessed Florida earlier, and Miami is another
Florida
one.
State.
Florida State is 7th with 12. They're tied with another traditional blue blood with 12.
Michigan, Ohio State.
I think Maurice Claret and all that going on there. So the rest of them, I'll be impressed. You got Tennessee. They're tied at number 9.
Just give them to me.
We got Syracuse and Tennessee tied at 9 with 11 vacated wins. SMU is 11th with 10, which makes sense. They got the death penalty. Then from here, we've got at number 12, we've got California and Arkansas State. Thank you. That'd be Hugh Freeze. 4.
No, he didn't get in trouble at Arkansas State.
Well, somebody did because they vacated 4 wins. And then the Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech might be a hell of an engineer, but they've vacated 1 win, coming in 13th.
Yeah. Vacating wins has got to be up there with the dumbest punishment for any penalty that you can put on somebody. Like, you can't erase my memory because God help me, I wish you could. That if you were able to figure out a way to wipe 4th and 25 away from me. Of course, that was a loss, but it just wiped the whole season away is fine. It's so dumb. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Nobody looks at record books for win totals.
And it's silly because
if you Google the 2015 Ole Miss record, it's going to say 9-3. It's not going to say 0-3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same with Reggie Bush and his Heisman. Like, why are we taking away a trophy that they've already won as a punishment? All that's doing is it looks silly. It really is just a petty, we're going to take away these wins because you was cheating when you did it. But, you punish them with scholarships, punish them with other ways, make it hurt the team. But it feels very, just pompous. Like, oh, we're going to take away your wins.
Fans when you vacate wins, and especially when you make them take down banners.
Right.
Like, there's no reason why the Memphis Tigers should not have a national championship runner-up banner because
100%.
Derrick Rose cheated on his ACT.
Well, technically he didn't. Somebody else took it for him. He never actually took it.
Okay, if somebody takes your test for you, is that cheating? Or?
I think it's just omission is what it is.
So it's just stupid. That's I've got thoughts on the NCAA, and if you want to, I don't know when you want to get into this, but well, you just
It's
you'll
the
set me up
segue.
whenever.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
segue coming up. But we'll kind of get into it now. For those of you keeping up at home, we had a pretty stiff penalty handed down this past week on the University of Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt specifically for his role. And Drew, I know you've heard some of this, but some of his
Just
role
tell
in
me what the penalties are.
yeah, I'm pulling it up right here. So basically, according to the NCAA, Tennessee committed 18 level one recruiting violations and over 200 violations, just regular violations during the Jeremy Pruitt era. They gave away about $60,000 worth of impermissible benefits during the dead period, during the COVID non-contact time. So during those different times. So the penalties are there's no postseason ban, which I've got some thoughts on that. They definitely wanted that SEC TV deal to be a thing and have another SEC team in a bowl game. So there's no postseason ban for Tennessee, but they're fined $8 million. They're on 5 years of probation. They had 28 scholarships taken away, which Tennessee had already self-imposed a 16 scholarship reduction. So
What
it's
was that
just
number?
12, 16, or so it's 28 total. And Tennessee had already taken away 16. And so they just had 12 additional scholarships over the next 5 years that they're vacating. And then finally, Jeremy Pruitt is given a 6-year show cause, meaning he can't be hired by a college football staff without having to prove justification why he should be hired. One of the recruiting assistants got a 10-year show cause, basically eliminating his ability to coach in college football for probably the rest of his career. It's just a pretty stiff penalty, but it didn't ban him from postseason play. And Tennessee was already heading in the right direction with the 16 self-imposed scholarship ban vacated, and so now it's just 12 additional over the next 5 years.
All right. So 18 level 1 violations, 200 in total. They ended up unearthing all this because the assistants that you're talking about text about it on school issued phones. Yeah.
And some of the text messages were pretty.
Yeah. And so those school issued phones, since they're state issued, are subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. And so they just turned over all phone records. And it is like one of the assistant coaches, the ones that got 10-year show calls, asked somebody for their Venmo.
Right.
Like just stupid, egregious, careless stuff.
And even kept saying, like, this is so illegal. This is so shady. And then they talked about paying Darnell Washington a massive amount of money, knowing that good and well he was still probably going to end up at Georgia. And he did. So they didn't even cheat well enough to get him on their team.
Right. So, here's the deal. I can go a lot of ways with this. First off, shame on the NCAA.
Yep.
This is not a problem anymore.
No.
So you have watched the last case get tried for impermissible benefits in college football. I believe that.
Outside of those recruiting dead periods where you can't contact
that's what I was going to say. So the only place they can have teeth really is if you're if you're contacting people when you shouldn't.
Right.
And shame on Tennessee because they were bringing people on visits during the COVID dead period. Like there weren't people at schools. Like you were not supposed
Nobody
to be.
was on campus.
You were not. I don't know if you remember 2020 very much, but you weren't even allowed to shake hands. Mm-hmm. And they were bringing these kids parties with their traveling parties to campus.
Yep.
When everybody else had kind of, and I'm sure everybody was doing it, but Secondly, Ole Miss in 2015 was finally, after an 8-year investigation into their program, in which they found some Houston Nut ACT problems. They found Laramie Tunsil got a loaner car, not even a vehicle. Look at the row of Camaros at Alabama. The guy at the Ford dealership at Cannon Motors in Oxford gave Laramie Tunsil a loaner car for what they deemed to be too long. He slept on Chris Kiffin's couch during a recruiting visit, and he got $500 cash. That's what they proved. You can say
Mhm.
they did more. Of course they did. This is about what they proved. And they gave Ole Miss. Ole Miss had 15 level 1 violations. They gave them a 2-year bowl ban. And so, what part of me is just like, screw you guys. I'm glad that you have no teeth anymore, and
Yep.
it's never been more apparent than what you just gave Tennessee.
Yep.
Now, the
100%.
scholarships hurt,
Yep.
but I don't care anything about
$8 million is chump
$8
change to
million.
a
They
university
paid
and
that for
SEC.
a 17-year-old quarterback in high school. So I don't
Absolutely.
care about that. I don't care about Pruitt's show calls. They fired him for cause. So that doesn't even bother them. He doesn't affect Tennessee
He'll
anymore.
land on an NFL squad as an assistant somewhere and be
Yeah.
there for the duration of that. No, that's
Yeah.
no big deal.
He's a good defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
200 violations. Just blatant and arrogant disregard for the rules that were in place at the time.
Yep.
I'm glad that those rules are irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that Tennessee is not serving a 2-year bowl ban
100%.
because no one. The problem with Ole Miss is Ole Miss let them in the house, challenged them. Hugh Freeze challenged them publicly to come after me. I ain't done nothing wrong, and don't talk bad about these men on their big day. He challenged them publicly on Twitter, and then he challenged them in the IPF when they came to town, and had words for them, and then they chose to cooperate and have for the duration of Hugh Freeze's tenure at Ole Miss. He was being investigated the whole time.
Yep.
And it's because Ross Bjork and Lee Tyner and all those people up in the athletic office with law degrees thought it would be best to cooperate, and they cooperated and then were executed.
Got busted wide open.
And it is the dumbest, most nonsensical thing that anybody with a shred of common sense would tell you is stupid.
Yeah.
But the NCAA, being what the NCAA is, and fighting for their own lives and to prove that they have teeth, made an example out of Ole Miss, regardless of the charges against them. And because they have no governing, they were going to lose. It was inevitable what has happened with the NCAA.
Yeah.
Somebody would challenge them in court and they would lose. They have lost every single court case they've ever been involved in, starting with Ed O'Bannon and the college football games.
And it's just the good old boy network is one of the most corrupt in all of sports governance, right up there with was it FIBA and what's the soccer one? FIFA. Some of the most corrupt organizations in sports, just picking and choosing because Jeremy Pruitt's lawyer has came out and said, okay, that's fine, but we have bank records of what he did at Alabama, and this is chump change compared to that.
And that's just the thing.
That's the thing. Like, this is small fish.
They have no morality to them at all. There's no ethics to them at all.
Because they're not going to go after Alabama and Nick Saban.
Well, if they did, if this was a court of law, and what's the cat's name? The big tight end went to Georgia.
Darnell Washington.
If I'm in a court of law and I'm being accused of paying Darnell Washington $5 million, but Darnell Washington went to Georgia, that begs the question, does it not? Why he went to Georgia?
100%.
Should we not ask that question? No.
Yeah.
It's a bird in the hand. We've got you by the tail here, and we're going to whoop you senseless because we can.
And it's always been that way. It's always been, we're going to pick and choose what we can do. Even back to the SMU, I don't know if you watched that. I'm sure you did, and our listeners, I hope you did as well, the Pony Express 30 for 30, where they talk about all the recruiting violations that SMU made. But what they were doing is they were just competing with Notre Dame. They were competing with Texas and Alabama for these kids. And when it got awry is when a small school like SMU started beating out the Blue Bloods for these players, the Eric Dickersons and the Craig James back then. beat these blue bloods out, then the NCAA cracks down on SMU because we can't have that. So they're very much going to protect the blue bloods. That's always been a known fact, and that's exactly what this is. We can get Tennessee. You nailed it, man. A bird in the hand is better than a bird in the bush. We've got evidence that we can get Tennessee, even though in the roundabout way through that we implicated Alabama and Georgia, but we're going to leave them alone.
Yeah, and I'm not. I think that the NCAA would have loved to get Alabama. I think that would be a pelt on the wall that they've always craved. But they can't handle it. But they have no subpoena power.
No.
They can only get what you give them.
And then what are you going to do?
If you cooperate with the NCAA, you will die.
Yeah, and what are they going to give? They're going to give Alabama, one of the biggest brands in all of sports, a bowl ban. You really think they're going to make Alabama and Nick Saban sit at home when there's a good chance they're going to be one of the final 4 to 6 teams in the country vying for a playoff spot with one of the biggest followings out of any sporting team? They're going to give them a bowl ban? That's not happening,
well,
man.
I'm going to tell you right now, Ole Miss got the last bowl ban that'll ever be handed
100%.
out.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially
with these lucrative TV deals now.
Yeah, that's who runs football.
Yeah.
Like, we need to quit pretending like the NCAA had any. They did not have the horses to line up and win a fight against ESPN or CBS or NBC or whoever.
Because I guarantee you that a bowl ban was on the table and ESPN called them up and said, absolutely not. We have this massive deal to show all SEC bowl games. And so you're going to take away one of those. It's probably going to be an upper level bowl game for the next couple of years because Heupel has them pointing in the right direction. It could be an Outback or Sugar Bowl or better. And you're going to take that away. That's absolutely not happening when there are millions of dollars on the table.
Right. And like I said, this is all a moot point because unless I think they could probably get you for some academic fraud, and they could probably get you for some dead period contact. Mm-hmm. But all this money that we're talking about now, it's more than it used to be.
Yeah.
And it is laid out in the job description when you visit. We know what it's going to take, and we've got the guys to pay you. And guess what? Yeah. It's legal.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. Brings up another point about this. You're talking about more money. Did you listen to, shout out Chris Vernon, the Chris Vernon Show. Did you listen to his podcast with Gary Parrish from last week when he had GP on? I think it was like Monday or Wednesday last week.
I think so.
So GP was talking about like paying athletes through the NIL deals and what athletes are actually getting on the open market. And so Gary Parrish was talking about he's a college basketball junkie. That's what he does. He writes for CBS. He has a big college basketball show. I remember him. He was my drive home guy when I lived in Memphis on ESPN radio, and he did this segment called Harvard or Horn Lake, which was a great trivia question. If you said Harvard, you got a harder like stats, math question. If you said Horn Lake, you got an easier geographical question. But anyway, it was hilarious. But I digress. He was having a drink with a well-known college basketball coach, one Bill Self, who has won a national championship in the last couple of years and been a very competitive coach for a long time. And he asked him, he's like, Bill, what about these numbers? Like, what are these kids actually fetching? And he said that the numbers are wild. He said, it's the Wild West out there. And the numbers that you're hearing, he said, take them, cut them in half, and then cut them in half again. He said, so if a kid is claiming that he's getting $500,000 on the open market, there's a good chance it's only 125, which is still great money, but it's not as much as they say it is. Everything is smoke and mirrors right now because there's no regulation, because there's no cap or anything like that. They can say what they want. They can promote what they want. And all it is those kids trying to get it back. But in reality, most of these kids are getting 20, 30, 40, 50,000, not the hundreds and thousands. Like, there are exceptions. I'm sure Caleb Williams, I'm sure Bronny James, or these guys are calling a big penny. Right. But most of these kids are getting $5,000, $10,000, $20,000.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's probably more than that. But it's not always hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, it depends on the kid, and like, the Bulldog Initiative or the initiatives at Ole Miss are going to be different than other schools, but pockets are deep, and I'm sure they're spreading that money out a little bit, but it's not quite what
for football. You got to probably half it again just based on roster size.
Sheer number, of kids going to these schools for sure. But yeah, so that's kind of our talk about Jeremy Pruitt, Tennessee. I thought it was kind of a backhanded thing, but again, probably some of the last penalties we'll see for impermissible benefits, as you said. But
yeah, just miss me with the whole this was extreme punishment. It wasn't.
No. It's
28 scholarships is important, but it's not as important as a scholarship was a few years ago.
right.
Because if you pay a guy 75 grand a year, well, then, you know, okay, fine, we'll pay you 75 grand a year and an additional 75 grand because you're not on scholarship.
Right. And there's creative ways. There's the Coca-Cola scholarship or the Fannie Mae Ida Louise scholarship. But there's ways to get scholarship monies for kids from inner city or from different schools or academic wise. They can make the math work.
But
it's
that's
just
the thing,
not an
it's
athletic
not,
scholarship.
Yeah, you're right.
Not an athletic scholarship. That's what the ban on. But sticking with college football for a minute, Drew, I got a question. I don't know if you saw, this is the week of SEC, Big 12 media days. So a couple topics on that. One, did you see what Jalen Daniels, the Kansas quarterback, had on his chain at Big 12 media days?
I didn't. Was it a horns down? Please tell me it was a horns down.
It wasn't a horns down. That would have been fantastic. Yeah. But it looked like a little, like an Apple Watch screen on a chain, and it was playing his highlights.
So dumb.
But it brings the question. I agree. I thought it was silly. If it was playing your highlights on that chain, what would they be? What would your highlights be?
Oh, no doubt. 50-yard line at the Carolina Panthers game, playing rock and roll music pregame before a Thursday night football game against the New Orleans Saints.
I love
That's what would be.
Long hair before the birth of your daughter or anything. Is that?
Well, I'd be honest with you. If you got a video of the birth of my daughter, there's some pretty compromising stuff that you could see in there. Maybe her first steps are running up to me calling daddy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it would also be me on a stage at the 50-yard line at the Carolina Panthers game, rocking and rolling. So it's highlights. There's lots of clips and highlights. So
yeah, sure, that would just be one of them. I heard that.
Maybe our successes in 8U softball this year would be in one of them.
There you go.
I
thought that was one of the silliest chains I've seen in a long time. But if he's a walking highlight reel, apparently is what he's putting off there. So,
I mean, hey, he's. Props to him.
Play, yeah.
You've got some swagger at Kansas now, and so lean into it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time Kansas has ever been relevant in football, so let's go for it, man. They had a decent squad last year.
What was their old coach's name? As big as a truck.
Yeah, Charlie Weiss. No, he
was at Notre Dame.
Oh, I can see him. Oh, it's gonna bug me. Hang on, you keep. Yeah,
I mean, he's big as a truck.
They had some good teams back in the day, and they would upset some people. Let's see.
And I believe it's Lance Leopold's the coach
Mark
now.
Mangino.
Yeah, that's it. Of course, Mangino.
Okay, yeah.
Big Italian mobster looking guy.
Absolutely. My man's been eating pasta and bread since he came out to womb. So.
He's a henchman and a college football coach.
He's like that guy from the Browns, that offensive line coach that looked like a walrus.
Yeah. Every time he said "hut," his belly would jump. That's something we need to talk about. Hard Knocks.
Yeah. We got the Jets coming up on Hard Knocks.
That's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
I hope they give like unlimited access. They've already said like it's going to be different. We're not giving as much access. Aaron Rodgers has got his panties in a wad. Turn those cameras on and screw it.
I want to see this man tripping balls on mushrooms in the locker room, seeing like what he's going through.
I just want to see him take a snap from the shotgun, turn 120 degrees, and hit Zach Wilson right in the face mask. Because he's going to.
Absolutely. Whoops. I thought we were running the bubble route.
Sorry. Here, take this one to your ear hole.
Yeah, I thought we were running a bubble screen there. That's my bad.
Yeah.
That's my bad. Yeah, that should be a good season with all the personalities. Sauce Gardner on that team. Like, there's some personalities on that team that should be pretty good. But real quick, back to the SEC Media Days. Shout out Greg Sankey. Like, again, the NCAA doesn't always get it right. The SEC doesn't always get it right. But the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, came on in his opening press conference and gave a tribute to Mike Leach. We documented Mike Leach's passing pretty well in his podcast back in the fall. And he came out and recalled a conversation with Coach Leach about just and I couldn't agree with this more, just the ignorance of neckties and why we have to wear neckties. One of the silliest accessories known to man. And Mike Leach was very anti-necktie. And so to kick off the SEC Media Days, Greg Sankey shows up, sans tie, to kick off the conference in a very classy move. Shout out Commissioner Sankey for doing that. That was pretty cool in my book.
Yeah, I think it is cool. And ties are stupid.
They're stupid. But like Coach Lee said, you use them like a napkin, like wiping your face with them. Maybe we'll get them to go away. But
right,
neckties are dumb anyway to begin with.
They just make it hard to breathe, and you
really
sweat
do
like crazy.
They really do.
Michael Leach was a man, a wise man.
Very wise in many, many ways, and that was one of them. And his personality is sorely missed, but Mississippi State did drop a new helmet for the coming season with the state script on it that looks incredible. I love them. I think it's awesome. I've never been a fan of the M script, and I think it's time to retire that. It's a great step in the right direction. They've still got the M script on the top of the jerseys here. They could have done something cool with State or Miss State or something on there, but it's a step in the right direction. And we had them last year in those icy whites for a game, but it looks like that's going to be one of our mainstay helmets this coming year, and I'm stoked about it.
I think it's going to be the primary helmet, and
it looks so good.
Yeah, they messed it up by doing it all maroon. Like, just go with white. Maroon's such a terrible color.
You're wrong on that for sure.
But I mean, and I'm not saying that as an anti-Mississippi State thing. I went to Kossuth High School.
Yeah,
I wore maroon.
I think it's a cool
I don't
color.
like it. It looks like it. Nothing looks good on it, and just solid maroon is just so
I think
drab.
There'll be a white one. We'll have an icy white game. We'll wear it on a road game. But I like it. I personally like the maroon helmet
love
with
the
white script, the white face mask.
I've told you before. Mississippi State's baseball uniforms that's got the script stayed across them, whether it be the pinstripes or I think at one time you had like a solid cream or something.
The cream ones a couple years ago.
They're great.
And it looks awesome. That state script, they've got it at the right angle. It looks good on the helmet. I think they'll keep tweaking it and playing with it, but there is some. We're also going to wear.
Maybe they won't screw this one up like they did the MSU. You heard that story. They let the trademark for MSU expire without realizing it, and Michigan State swapped it up. That's why it no longer says
MSU.
Yeah, that's why it no longer says MSU on the scoreboard or anything like that. It's because they let the dang trademark lapse.
Yeah, which they announced that they're going to do one game this year. They're going to do a throwback uniform set to the 98 team that played in the SEC championship game against Tennessee that year. They're going to do a throwback jersey. So I'm curious what they're going to do with that, because that was my favorite state helmet of all time was the interlocking MSU, and it was that year. So I'm curious what they're going to do with that. They'll probably do the Miss State jersey that we used to wear. But I'm curious how they're going to do that without that trademark. I'm excited. Maybe they'll be able to do like a one-off thing with it. But those, in my opinion, are the best Mississippi State helmets.
Yeah. Pass.
So speaking of football, we'll kind of stay there. We talked some NFL a little bit. But Tennessee Titans made a bit of a splash this week. It's been rumored for a few weeks going on now. And I know Drew trying to kill my vibe about our Super Bowl odds not changing. But the Tennessee Titans signed DeAndre Hopkins, and it's funny how the media is like the narrative changes, right? Like just 2 weeks ago, he was this game changer, 1,000-yard receiver coming off an injury, but it's going to be great. He's going to help the Patriots be this next level and Mac Jones develop and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden he signs with the Titans, and now, he's going where receivers' careers go to die, and comparing him to Randy Moss and Julio Jones, whose careers were actually dead, and Andre Johnson, whose careers were actually dead when they already dead when they got there. Not necessarily killed by Tennessee, but it's just how funny how that changes over the course of a couple weeks. And, Ryan Tannehill is no Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, anything like Josh Allen, like nothing like that.
I mean, yeah, let's state the obvious here.
But he's a serviceable quarterback.
Yeah, well, see, my problem is you only threw the ball. You threw the ball the third fewest times per game than anybody in the NFL.
We also, 3/4 of our team was dead and died.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And if you tell me that because he's got a true number one target and D-Hop is healthy and himself, that Ryan Tannehill looks better, I believe it, because I've said on this podcast before, receivers make quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Average quarterbacks look really good.
And then with less than average receivers, he had A.J. Brown there for a very short time, but all he's done in 57 games with the Titans is throw for over 12,000 yards. He's been to the playoffs 3 out of 4 years he's been in Tennessee. He's been in the AFC title game. He's been back-to-back AFC conference games.
But that's not because of Tannehill, though. You got to say that.
No, he has lost us some games. He has lost. He lost that game against Joe Burrow and the Bengals by throwing a
And
pick
he
on our first
hasn't
and last
won you
possession.
any games.
But we've won with him, and he's gotten us
Yeah,
there in those positions. I'm
but
not saying.
that's a distinction that's important when you're talking about a receiver that you're adding here.
I think it's going to help Ryan Tannehill be better in the twilight of his career, and I think it makes us better next year, 100%. I think it's going to make him a better quarterback.
You know, Hopkins was not good last year.
Well, he missed half
in limited work. Yeah, because of a PED suspension,
right.
not because of an injury.
Right.
So, I mean, I get it, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be excited about it. I'm just saying that, to me, the first thing I thought was, okay, this has been going on for a month, that he may go to the Titans. Why did he go now? Did all the other offers get pulled? Like, because he's only got 2 years, $24 million.
It's a very team friendly deal. Very team friendly.
So you're telling me that Team X paid him more money, but he chose the Titans? I don't know. I'm not trying to be a hater. I just think that when you had AJ Brown 2 years ago, and you just signed AJ Brown 10 years from now. I just paid AJ Brown.
So the thing, and I've heard that, but the thing is, that's two different GMs, right? Not signing AJ Brown got our previous GM fired. So this is a completely different regime. Guarantee you, any other GM with sense would have re-signed AJ Brown and not expected a first-year rookie out of Arkansas to come in and replace the production of an all-pro receiver who competed in the Super Bowl this past year. So that argument is dead to me, and I miss me with that because it's a completely different regime.
Fine. I get, okay, fine, whatever.
But
AJ Brown was better.
100%. I mean, I'm not that's fine, but it's a completely different, that's apples and oranges. One of the things I did find that was funny, though, was now that DeAndre Hopkins is a Tennessee Titan, he is now the Titans' all-time leading receiver of active players in current receiving touchdowns with 72. Drew, you may have seen this stat already in our show doc, but do you know who the number 2 leading receiver for touchdowns in a career for the Tennessee Titans is?
Yeah, I do.
It's our head coach, Mike Vrabel. He had 12. So, like, DeAndre Hopkins is already going to be, like, the man, followed by Chris Moore with 8, Nick Westbrook kind at 7, and Treylon Burks with 1. So, like, we've got a receiver who can catch touchdowns. You know, is he the DeAndre Hopkins of 5, 6, 7 years ago where he was the best in the league? Absolutely not. Is he Randy Moss and Julio Jones with a bad leg? I don't think so either. I think he's going to be somewhere in the middle. I think he makes us better. He gives us a deep threat. If nothing else, he can help give some room for Derrick Henry, Treylon Burks, Chingy under the middle to get some yards and get open. I think it makes us a better team. And look, if nothing else, like, we were a number 1 in contention for the number 1 seed in the AFC until midway point in the season when half our team got hurt and we lost 8 consecutive games and played trash football and still almost beat the Jaguars in the regular season finale to go to the playoffs outside of a couple botched calls by the refs and our long gone offensive coordinator. Thank God. I think we're going to be a better team next year, and and part of it's going to be because of D-Hop.
He's going to catch 170 passes this year.
Absolutely. Tannehill is the new meme of a couple years ago when Pat Mahomes was like, screw it, Tyreek's down there somewhere, and screw it, D-Hop's down there somewhere.
Yeah. One of the best ever at high pointing a football in traffic and coming down with the tough catches is DeAndre Hopkins.
100%.
And let me center this because I'm scared I'm coming off as a hater, and I'm not. I think that DeAndre Hopkins is obviously a good ad for you guys at a good price, and it's not going to hurt you, and it will help you. I think that Tennessee has also gotten a lot of flack. I've seen that meme going around a lot this week with Andre Johnson and Randy Moss and Julio Jones, where their careers died in Tennessee as if that was Tennessee's fault. Those Tennessee teams were terrible, but it wasn't Tennessee's fault that they
those guys were
sucked at that time. Anyway. Yeah. So if you get a chance to go out and get Nuke, you go get Nuke and throw it up. Hope he stays healthy. Tell him to stay off the deer antler spray or whatever he was on to get popped for 6 games. Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say about it, and this is a fun stat, going back to Ryan Tannehill, Patrick Mahomes is 64-16 in the regular season. there are 3 quarterbacks who have beaten him twice in the regular season: Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill.
Regular season.
Don't matter. Regular season, man. We got wins where we can get them, man. You got to take them.
Patrick Mahomes at one point had never lost to Joe Burrow until they faced each other in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, that's
so and then Patrick Mahomes ripped his heart out.
Outside of Josh Downing, we were up 2 touchdowns going in to go up a 3rd touchdown on Pat Mahomes in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden we went away from Derrick Henry, who they had no answer for. And again, Pat Mahomes may have won that game regardless, but we were keeping Pat Mahomes on the sideline, up 2 touchdowns, heading for a 3rd. Ryan Tannehill throws a pick, and the rest, as they say, is history. But, Drew, I know there's another hot topic in the NFL both of us have been kind of itching to talk about, and it's the lack of respect and payment for some of these top-tier running backs. So this past week was the deadline to sign contract extensions, to sign franchise tenders, and to be able to report for fall camp that's coming up, summer workouts and stuff. And so arguably one of the best running backs in the league, or the top tier, 3 of the top tier running backs left this week without a contract. And Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard, 3 fantasy football stalwarts who helped sell our team.
Has already been released.
Yeah, already been released, didn't get a contract. So, the only guys that are getting paid right now are CMC and Derrick Henry at the top of that list. Austin Eckler has a new deal, but, those are 3 really, really good running backs, and I think it's a statement to where the NFL is now and where they're investing their money. Not so much in workhorse running backs like the 90s when we saw Thurman Thomas and Emmitt Smith and Jerome Bettis getting the biggest deals on the team. That's more going to the A.J. Browns and the quarterbacks and these other players. But it's still kind of a head-scratcher to see guys of that quality without a deal, knowing that, they have the right to sit out a season or sit out until they get a trade.
Yeah, so I'm going to say 2 things here. First, if you feel like you're worth more money, then you sit out. You do what you got to do to try to get the bag that you want. Saquon Barkley, former rookie of the year, he's worth it more times than not. Dalvin Cook is a proven running back. Josh Jacobs led the NFL in rushing yards last year, had an incredible breakout year last year. Austin Eckler is one of the best 2-way running backs in football, if not the best, when you talk about pass catching and rushing.
One of the best to do it since LaDainian Tomlinson out of the backfield like that.
Absolutely.
100%.
And so go get what you think you're worth. Don't take a discount if you think that if it's worth it for you to sit out to get the contract then you do you. I'm a capitalist.
Yep.
Secondly, next, you see the way the NFL is going, right? There is not a team outside of the Tennessee Titans and the San Francisco 49ers that don't employ a running back by committee. 100%. You see what the contract that Ezekiel Elliott got the Dallas Cowboys in the later years of that contract was a boat anchor.
Yeah.
It happens more times than not. And it's not anything against the running back position, but it's investing in what is working right now, which is young receivers. You invest a lot of money in running backs, and that is the position that's got arguably the shortest shelf life of any major position in sports, is the running back position. Ezekiel Elliott was incredible for 4 years, and then he didn't have it anymore. You're talking about Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's wanting a bag from a team that got burnt by Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep.
I get it both ways. I get that the players want more money, but if I'm a GM, the only one out of that bunch that I'd be willing to pony up for is Austin Eckler or Tony Pollard.
Yeah. Absolutely. And because they fit that mold of where the NFL is going, the bruising running backs that back in the day are gone. I mean, you saw David Montgomery, who was that for Chicago, got dealt for nothing and let walk, and now he's in Detroit. Which there's a really funny video of him getting pulled back by that 20-pound weight, but on that bungee cord. But like
Right.
the big bruising running backs are gone, and so it's more of those shifty guys like Austin Eckler. It's more of the Tony Pollards. But like you said, good luck getting a fat contract from Dallas after what they went through with Ezekiel Elliott. And
Yeah, and I
so,
mean, you even look at how much they're investing draft capital in.
mhm.
Up until this last draft with Bijan Robinson going in the top 10, we talked about it on this podcast. The last running back taken in the top 10 was Saquon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Najee was like mid first round,
Mid to
mid to late
late.
first round. Yeah, I think he was like
Josh
maybe
Jacobs was a
18.
second round pick.
Hmm.
Austin Eckler, I think, was undrafted.
Yeah, and so it just shows like the average NFL
value.
career for a running back is 2.5 years, and so it's a very short shelf life. You know, you've got the guys, and there are exceptions to the rule. Shady McCoy played forever, but he plays more of that same style of football like an Austin Eckler. You had LaDainian Tomlinson played for a long time. Jerome Bettis is an exception to the rule as a big bruising running back, but the days of those guys getting those fat long-term deals are gone because of the history of the position. It's an unfortunate thing. They just don't last forever. The teams are going to invest their money in other places. Protection for the quarterback, receivers, because it's such a pass-happy league. You know, a great tight end, if you can find one, like a Travis Kelce or in that vein. You're going to invest that money elsewhere besides the running back position, where that money, it's all about ROI, and that return on that investment may not ever come if you give them a fat contract.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much value in later rounds at the running back position.
Yeah.
And so it's more beneficial to you to take a flyer on 3 running backs between the rounds of 4 and 7 than it is for you to take a swing at somebody knowing that they're going to be wanting $20 million a year in 3 years.
Yep.
Like, I get it. As a GM, you look at the most impactful player to come out of the draft in the last 3 years is Justin Jefferson.
Right.
CD Lamb, Jamar Chase. I mean, these are the guys that are setting the world on fire.
Yeah.
And I mean, I look at all this, and it's not applicable here. But you look at it for fantasy as well. It's like that's who performs in fantasy. That's who performs in real life. That's the game changers. Is the pass catchers, the dynamic pass catchers. And the running backs are used as a change of pace, you know, to keep you honest more than it is to be impactful. Mm-hmm. And so, with the exception of Derrick Henry, which he's the exception to every rule that's ever been written
about running backs,
you know, you look at what's his name? He burned me so bad in fantasy one year. The Todd Gurley.
Oh yeah.
Todd Gurley burned hot and burned out fast.
Them knees were terrible when he left Georgia.
Yeah. I mean,
which was the MO for Alabama running backs. It's an MO for a lot of Alabama running backs too. Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson were burning out like that. A couple of other big time guys.
Yeah. Mark Ingram lasted a long time.
That's
you do
fair.
not besmirch Mark Ingram and my New Orleans Saints.
Apologies.
He is a what is that? There was a I believe it was Josh Robinson, the old Mississippi State running back.
Yeah, the bowling ball.
They said he was a bowling ball of butcher knives. You know, that's Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
But it's just, the NFL's gone away from him. It's part of evolution of the game. You know, used to it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah.
And now it's like the NBA. It's pace and space. You know, just like the big lug 7'2" center with post moves doesn't exist anymore. The bruising running back is not going to exist anymore, except for in special occasions like Derrick Henry.
It's gone of the days are the colossal tackles from back in the day too, right? Those colossal left tackles that were just, they didn't move all that great, but you could not get around them just because they were
like
massive.
Orlando Pace.
Right. Willie Snead, like those guys are gone. Now it's more the Jason Kelce's of the world that are quick,
versatile,
athletic, very versatile.
Pass pro.
Absolutely, because they got to be able to pull and move and get down the field with these RPOs. And,
right.
And a lot of this is Hal Mumme and Mike Leach developing this air raid attack, and that's where the state of the NFL is now. So,
yeah, you look at. I'm curious to see how Zach Evans does in the NFL.
Yeah.
He was just drafted out of Ole Miss. He did 1 year at Ole Miss after TCU. Lane has done that adapted, uh, uh, fun and gun. You know the what was it? I'm just blanking. What's air raid? It wasn't air raid. It was air raid, but Lane
With a
loves to
running
run
game.
the ball out of the air raid, out of the shotgun. I'm curious to see how somebody like that stacks up in the NFL. He went to the Rams. I think he's got a chance to fit there if he can keep his head clean.
Yeah, I think you need a guy like a Lamar Jackson or a quick athletic quarterback that can complement that. Matt Stafford may not be the guy that does
Right.
that with him, but get him in space. Austin Eckler plays really well alongside Phillip
Herbert.
Rivers and now Justin Herbert. Herbert.
Congratulations
Oh
to
yeah,
Philip Rivers, by the way.
baby number 10.
Hey, buddy, I'm coming for you. You've got 10, and so you could be all-time quarterback with your own family.
That's it.
I'm coming for you.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
We in this thing, right?
Yeah. We almost had a full basketball squad.
Yeah.
You just wait.
Nothing will ever beat. Speaking of Hard Knocks, they showed I saw the clip this week of Antonio Rogers Cromartie sitting there counting out all of his kids, and he had like 8 3-year-olds.
Yeah. Him and Nick Cannon.
Oh my gosh, they're single-handedly doing their best to keep the world population at an all-time high.
Yeah, they're killing the ozone layer. Too much carbon dioxide.
That's
because Nick Cannon and Antonio Rogers Cromartie won't get a vasectomy.
That's it. You got 17 kids apiece, man, running around here. But it was just funny. He just
Phil
kept
Rivers.
saying, it was like 7 or 8 kids. He's 3, about to be 3, just turned 3. It's like
there's no way. He's got to have an assistant just to buy birthday presents.
I mean, that's it, to keep up with the birthdays. It's wow.
Right.
Last topic I got for us tonight, man, is a big major in professional golf across the pond is getting ready to kick off this weekend. One of the better events. It's at Liverpool this weekend. I have a buddy, Ryan Minmuir, who is over there. He flew in yesterday, was texting our golf group chat some pictures of being there and talking about, he said, the weather is similar to that at Brookline, one of their golf courses they play up in Massachusetts. He said, but the foliage is not nearly as good as it's just these flat green grounds where the golf course is. He showed us the tee box for number 18, and Drew, I would murder somebody because there's an elevated TV camera on the right, and then patrons on the left or fans on the left-hand side here. So I would do one of two things. I would either hit that man at the camera, or I would overcompensate and hook it into the grandma in the first row over here. Either way, leaving an indelible mark on the British Open's 18th tee box.
The only thing I don't like, I hate sporting events across the pond because it messes up the TV schedule.
Yeah, I didn't get to see Rory win live. I had to watch it late last week on Sunday afternoon after I got to playing golf. I mean,
so that was in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same thing with Wimbledon. The Wimbledon final started at like 7 a.m. Luckily, it went 5 sets. By the time I got home from church, it was still on.
Yeah, you can watch it.
4 hours and 40 minutes of tennis. But
I pulled up some of the odds. Some of the odds this year are interesting. There's definitely some bold moves. Rory McIlroy is your odds-on favorite, plus 525 to win, followed by Scotty Scheffler at 750. John Rahm and Ricky Fowler at 1200. Tommy Fleetwood, Victor Hovland, who I'm getting more and more of a fan of. I like him. Cameron Smith, last year's champ.
Idiot. He's got the worst shirts in all of golf.
Who, Victor Hovland?
Yes.
He always looks like he's been hanging out with Aaron Rodgers, though. He's always got that like glassy-eyed grin going. He's a hilarious guy. Cam Smith are all tied at 1,500, followed by Koepka, Schauffele. But one of the surprising is top 10 stalwart Jordan Spieth. Odds makers don't even think you're going to make the top 10 this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be able to dissect golf games and how they play on golf courses. Especially link style like the Open Championship. So I'm just gonna go. I'm rooting for Ricky and Rory, and then I'm rooting for something close down the back nine on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. Rory has been over a decade since he won his last Open Championship event, and it would be nice to see him get that monkey off his back. There's some great personalities, like you said. Ricky Fowler's been playing really good golf lately. Cam Smith always shows up at the British Open, and he's been talking a little trash this week about getting ready to drink out of the jug. He said, I told my mates that we're only going to be without it for a week, and we'll be drinking out of it again this time come Sunday, which I thought was
funny. He's a defending champion.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting field, and I think there'll be some good golf. The weather looks good. Ryan's been sending some pictures of drinking beer and eating ice cream all up and down there. I'm like, I'm sitting here at work, man, and you're out there eating ice cream.
Yeah, don't send me those pictures. I was listening to a podcast today. So Fleetwood, that's like his home course, and so that's why he's such a high favorite. He's never won a major, but he seems to always be in contention. So coming down the stretch, if he's in contention, that would be a good story.
Yeah, he's always one of those guys in the final pairings. That he was in the final pairing last week in Scotland, and so it would be nice to see him break the seal at his home course.
But no one more than Ricky. I want to see Ricky break the seal.
Yeah, he's 1,200, so some people think he can do it, tied with John Rahm. So he's got the third best odds in the field. So I'd love it, man. He's been playing good golf recently, and obviously the U.S. Open got everybody fired up and pulling for him again. So it'd be nice for him to get that monkey off his back. Well, obviously our buddy Jake Matthews, big Puma guy, works for Puma now. So we'll all be rooting for you, Ricky, to go win that cup. Get
him on the podcast. Why has he not been on? I want to talk about that industry, especially after watching Air. Talking about the signature Michael Jordan basketball sneaker, the first ever signature shoe.
Yep.
I'm curious in that kind of stuff. I know Puma's got a presence, especially in the NBA, you know, which is the king when it comes to signature shoes is the NBA, the basketball shoes.
Yeah, especially like their off-court shoes. They're big in the soccer world too. I mean, there's a lot going on there. So I was thinking about Jake this week, seeing if we can get him on during the sports downtime. So Jake, if you're still listening to us at this point, which I'm sure you are, we're going to get you on the podcast here soon, buddy.
One last thing, I got a recommendation. Me, along with every other person on the face of the earth, watched Quarterback, the new Netflix documentary detailing the seasons of Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, and Kirk Cousins. And I want to be the one out in front saying that I am now rooting for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, he's just such a good
guy. Telling you. So he's always kind of been the weirdo dad, my wife picks out my clothes.
Bouncing with the chains on the plane.
Always good, never great. I'm really rooting for him to make a splash here and really break through, because it's something that I've valued since becoming married and now having kids and having a job that a lot of times require me to be able to, have to be away from my family for lengths of time. What he does, spoiler alert for, it's not a big detail. Me and Rusty talked pre-show. I don't think you've seen this yet, but they detail his Tuesdays. Mm-hmm. So he said, most people think this is just stupid. I'm a starting quarterback, one of 32 in the world in the NFL. I do not work on Tuesdays. I told him that from the get-go. Tuesdays are for my wife and kids. Football season is 18 weeks long in the regular season. 6 days a week, I am pulled. I've got charity stuff. I've got practice. I've got film. I've got training. I've got rehab. Tuesdays are for my family. And every Tuesday when he starts off, he takes his kids to preschool, and him and his wife just hang out. And maybe it's the sap in me that just craves that. Like I tell my wife all the time, like, can we get rid of these kids and just like be together,
Do our thing.
And it really just hit home, and I'm like, for the machine that is the NFL and the money generator and the capitalist in me, you make your money while you can. It's all about winning, and for the teams that I root for, I just want them to be machines, and I want them to do whatever it takes to win at all times. Who cares? To see him just be like, you know what? I try really hard. I do everything I can, but I'm also a husband and a father and a Christian man that's not going to compromise my values or my time with my family. I was just like, you know what? I'm glad somebody gave him the platform to say that.
Yeah.
because it's just a mindset that is so foreign in professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when it comes out that you do things like that and without the depth of context and the backstory, people pick you apart and want to, you're a quarterback that you don't want it enough. You don't try enough. You're not totally committed if you take 1/7 of the week completely off and don't even talk about football. Like, no, there are things that are bigger than this, and I appreciated seeing that. And so that's my plug uh for Quarterback on Netflix. It's good. It's really good, and it kind of fit. It was kind of the perfect time for them to focus on those three quarterbacks in particular, because you had Mariota in his first year in Atlanta, who is kind of fighting off or trying to fight off a rookie that they invested draft capital in, while also trying to resurrect his career as a starting quarterback.
Yep.
And then you've got Cousins, who went what was it, 15-3 this year, 14-4. Really had them cruising through the regular season, including the largest comeback in NFL history, if you remember that.
Down
Against the
33
Colts.
to nothing and came back
Right.
and won.
So you got that in the documentary, and then you got Patrick Mahomes winning the Super Bowl.
Which is just it's a great game, and it's three big personalities, like you said, in different phases of their career. For me, with Kirk Cousins, it was cool what they showed. It really stood out to me was in the first episode, after they played the game on Sunday, he just goes back home and builds a bonfire with his kids and just sits around the bonfire and just like talks and is a dad after having like this major football game that we all think is just the end all be all, and we've been looking forward to it all off season. It's the first game of the year, and then he just goes home and builds a bonfire with his kids, and it's made me appreciate some of the humanity side of it. Like you said, I already had a kind of a soft spot for him. He seemed like a good dude, and so far it's only made that better. It's made me like Pat Mahomes' wife even less, and it's just cool to see.
I'll be honest with you, it came across a little different for me.
Yeah,
she's loud and her voice is annoying, but she was not as crazy as I expected her to be portrayed. Maybe my own preconceived notions of what I expected going into watching it was a little bit too wild.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm telling you what, if I'm starting quarterback in the Super Bowl and my wife ain't standing in a chair and screaming, then me and her gonna have problems.
We got a different conversation to have for sure.
Yeah. So,
but this is the first of a couple of good football documentaries coming out. We've got one coming out about Johnny Manziel. We've got one coming out about that wild Florida team that had everything from Tim Tebow and racist Riley Cooper to Aaron Hernandez and Urban Meyer and the Pouncey brothers. Like, we've got some good football documentaries coming out in the next month that'll pacify us. I think both of those are being rumored to come out in August sometime, which would be leading right up to the teeth of college football. And it looks like, Johnny Football, Swamp Kings are all both coming out through the Untold beginning August
so these
the
are
1st.
the same people that did the Manti Te'o documentary.
Which was so well done. It was such a good documentary.
And so
and they did several other that were good in that series, but that was the biggest one that got the most hype.
Yeah, I've watched a few of them. I can't recall.
The one about the female boxer was really good, whose husband tried to kill her. That one was fantastic. You need to watch that. It was good.
I probably most looking forward to the Barry Bonds one.
Mm-hmm.
They're detailing Barry Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Florida thing is interesting.
Yeah,
just because it got out of control.
Mm-hmm.
But that one may be a little hard to watch. So along with the Manziel, because Manziel was just he was living on another planet than the rest of us.
For sure. It was just peak human performance for those couple of seasons in College Station. It just never panned out, and he
had like a childhood star arc to him.
I mean, just a quick burnout, man. And that Florida team was just the gamut that it ran in personalities and backstories. The WWE could not come up with a better backstory than that Florida team had. Yeah.
I mean, you contrast, look at the dichotomy between Tim Tebow and Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah. Cam Newton was on that team for a brief period before he got caught stealing laptops. I mean, what a team, man. Like, what could have been with that team. I mean, it could have very easily
Well, they
been up
won
there.
2, right? Or they just
Right.
win 1?
I think they won 1 and they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game the next year because they won in 08. Alabama won in 09.
That McCarron?
Yeah. And no, that was McElroy. That
McElroy?
was McElroy beating. That's when they beat Texas and Colt McCoy. Well, Colt McCoy for like a possession.
Yeah.
But that team like could have been up there talent wise, just with what they produced in the league with that 0-1 Miami team with so many players and stars on that, but just so many guys getting in their own way. And anyway, I'm excited to see that. We got Hall of Shame, which is the Barry Bonds, Johnny Football, Swamp Kings about Florida. There'll be some good documentaries coming
There
up.
was one more. I remember thinking
it's Jake Paul. About Jake Paul.
Jake Paul. That one will be interesting too.
Yeah, Jake Paul, the problem child is what it's called. I don't know. I get enough of Jake Paul and the little bit that he pops up on my Twitter feed. Then I don't know that I'll probably watch it just to watch because those are good documentaries. But he gets on my nerves.
Well, I saw another documentary coming out, and I'm going to just give you the floor and let you talk about it. I saw where the people that did the golf documentary and the Formula One documentary, the next documentary that they're going to tackle is over the U.S. women's national team. So tell me what you think about that.
Oh, boy.
Give me all your thoughts right now.
Oh, way to put me on the spot. Getting hot here. Yeah, when we get big and famous, we may have to go back and edit this episode. But yeah. I'm curious how they're going to present that.
Yeah.
Curious how they're going to present that.
We all know how they're going to present that. So.
In all the infactualities. Anyway, so Drew, tell them where they can find us.
Well, this episode maybe you can find in the garbage in a few years. In the meantime, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube if you search the $2 Sports Podcast. Keep up with us on Instagram at the number $2 Sports Podcast. Rusty does a really good job of hitting up everybody for different questions, different polls, stuff to try to generate some feedback and some dialogue with the people that listen to us. If you do participate in that, we do appreciate you.
Even though I completely forgot to bring that up on this episode because we dove right in.
Yeah. And so we'll save that.
Next week.
That was a topic. It was if you could pick one sporting event to have tickets for the rest of your life, what would it be?
We got some good ones. Yeah, we got some good ones that'll be worth deep diving in. I don't want to rush it here at the end of the episode. We'll save that for the beginning of next week.
So we'll put a pin in that till next week. And in the meantime, just holler at us. You know, if you won our bracket challenge, please reach out to us. It is the middle of July, and we have not found who the winner of our March Madness bracket was yet.
Still owe him a T-shirt.
You know, we're not flaking, but you're not claiming it either. Yeah. So
you could have a one of one, the original signed $2 Sports Podcast T-shirt.
but you got to claim it. I don't even remember what the folks' name was now, but
I think I've even deleted the app. I'd have to open it back up and look. But if you're listening out there, maybe you're one of our listeners in Brussels, Belgium, or France, where you're listening to us overseas, please let us know if you won. But Drew, as always, man, hope you get feeling better, you get them kids around, get you sick all the time. But glad to see you up and healthy and not chasing thunderstorms. There were some bad thunderstorms that rolled through that area. Memphis had 138,000 people without power.
Man, Memphis got hit hard.
And it did in Raleigh, too. It came right on over and hit Raleigh.
Inside baseball in the power industry where I'm at, if Memphis gets hard, I buckle up. And we fought it for about 7 or 8 hours last night. Got home about 3:30. All things considered, considering the storms that we've had this last year, that was just a normal Tuesday. So everybody in Memphis, be safe. And hopefully MLGNW can get you straight.
Yeah.
But, until next Wednesday when we record again and next Thursday when you guys hear it, hope you all have a good week and keep us in your minds and holler at us whenever you got a thought.
Bye, guys.